Welcome to another episode of Mikhail Madness, your favorite podcast covering Arizona men's basketball. That's Corey Williams. I'm Saul Bookman. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We got a lot to say. It's not even to get into. It's just we got a lot to say tonight. There's a lot of things going on that we need to discuss. And Corey, I'll just start here. First and foremost, we talked about it a little bit last night on the defense. And the more and more I thought about it, the more and more I was like, I'm not feeling this. I'm not feeling this at all. Like, not even a little bit. And listen, man, like, I understand that the wares of the season can get on you, and you just, sometimes you're just kind of going through the motions. You just want to get the season over with because, you got bigger things ahead. But preparation is everything. And I feel like right now, the way Arizona has played basketball on the defensive side has not led you to feel good about what is to come in the rest of March. Talk me off a ledge, Corey.
I wish I could, but I'm probably just going to push you further off the ledge. You're 1,000% right. I mean, what BYU's 95 in McHale Center was different than ASU's 100 points in McHale Center. BYU ran great stuff and had good shooters, and they proved it again by winning at Iowa State. Arizona State came in limping in there with 7 guys. 10 seconds in, Miller gets hurt. Now they're down to 6. Yeah. For them to put up 100 points in McHale Center simply tells me one thing. There wasn't the defensive intensity needed to put that game away early. That game could have very easily been a 20-point win for Arizona. And I want to give Arizona State some credit. They made a lot of shots, but if you go back and watch the tape, the one-on-one breakdowns was just effort. Guys helping, leaving guys open for shots. I mean, there weren't a ton of contested shots. They were ASU knocked down shots, but sometimes there weren't defenders around when they were doing it. So just an overall lack of intensity on defense for the Arizona State game.
Sometimes. I mean, I'm watching this replay today, and I'm like, hello? What are we doing out here? The pick and roll switches. Like, just 2 guys covering one dude and leaving the other guy wide open. Just like, it's cool. Even stuff is easy as getting back on defense and finding your man. Like,
right.
You're right. This is way different than it was with BYU. To me, it's far more concerning. Arizona, in the last 10 games, Arizona's 3 worst performances on defense of the season have come in 3 of the last 4. And that can't happen right now. Like, this is not the time to lose your focus. And it's not looking great. And listen, we got some stats to back this up today, right? So I'm going to hit you with the first one.
All right.
In the last 10 years, not a single NCAA champion outside of 1 has had a defensive rating worse than 92.5. Arizona currently right now is at a 96.5. Okay. And that 1 was Villanova in 2018. And they had some dogs on that team. Mikal Bridges, a little guy named Brunson. They had scores.
Yeah.
So I'm not feeling it, Corey.
I played on teams long time ago, but everybody knows you got to win 6 games in a row. And I think there was a time where Arizona had won like 14 out of 15 where people were starting to be like, oh, wow, I'm feeling this is a team that could win 6 in a row. And the national championship is always the hope of every Arizona team at the beginning of every season. It's the hope of all the fans. But I don't think at any point people have felt like this is a team that could pull off 6 in a row. When you talk about the defense and the defensive efficiency, you can't have a game where you give up a bunch of points to an ASU because it's win or go home. So I'm not surprised at that stat. Anybody that puts together 6 wins in a row in the postseason, they're guarding people. You have no choice but to guard people. Matter of fact, you guard people so that when you have an off night, you win anyway. But that's a foregone way of playing basketball, and I don't know if it's ever going to return. That defense first mentality, I think you see it with Houston. You see it with the guards at Iowa State. You see it at Auburn. You see it at the top level clubs where they come out and shut you down. They really don't care about offense. Offense is something we do for fun when we're not playing defense. Man, it is so hard to build a team with that mentality nowadays, but that's what it takes to win 6 in a row. And quite honestly, that's why most people's brackets will be trash after the first weekend, because certain teams that have played well all year will come out, a coach will scheme for them offensively, and they're not going to commit to playing defense, so they end up getting beat by a lesser team. Happens every year. It'll happen again this year.
Austin Mason looked like he was all world last night. That kid was balling. He had a couple tough shots. Listen, the kid played really, really well. Shot the ball very well, got some nice, easy looks, was able – listen, they switched up and put poor Toby Awaka had no chance on the perimeter against somebody that quick, and he just, rope-a-doped him, stepped back, got him. And, again, what is the purpose of the defense if every single time you get caught up in the same mismatch over and over and over again? And now this time it's Austin Mason, sure. But next time it could be somebody – far worse with way more on the line, like you said. And they've got to improve. They got to get better. The intensity, I didn't feel like the intensity was necessarily lacking. I just felt like the focus was lacking.
Yeah, and I look at Arizona defensively, and a couple of things stick out. And I'm not really trying to critique their approach because it's been their approach all season. But when you switch everything except the 4 and 5, what happens is you never really get to set into a defensive rhythm. If I'm guarding you, as the game wears on, I get a feel for what you're going to do. I get to win a few battles here and there, deny you, maybe get a steal, block a shot. So by the 10-minute mark, it's you versus me, and we're in a war. I'm locked in. Coach told me I got you. So if I win this battle, we win the game. But if I'm giving you up on every dribble handoff and I'm giving you up on every ball screen, I don't ever get to win that war. And all of a sudden, you got 30 points because you've been getting buckets on my teammates who are lesser defenders. Matter of fact, you're running stuff to get me off of you until you get the matchup you want. And then it's Mason against Awaka at the top of the key. And Bobby's team did a great job of running and running and running. They know Arizona's going to give up everything between the 1, 2, and 3. They're going to switch it all. So when we get Del Orso, when we get Caleb, when we get a 1-5, then we're going to open up and penetrate and do our thing. They played until they got the favorable matchup that they wanted, and then they shredded Arizona one-on-one. It's not brain surgery. It's just simply, hey, I know I got a harder chance scoring against KJ Lewis. So let me do a couple of motions, get him off of me, and now I'm going to go to work on a smaller defender or a slower defender. Good basketball, but I think defensively Arizona's too predictable. And it's too late in the game to change it to a lockdown type of defensive mentality where you come into the locker room and there's your name on the board. This is who you're guarding. This is who you're guarding. This is who you're guarding. I played for coaches that would look me in the face on Thursday for a Saturday game. Corey, you got him. So I know 48 hours in advance who I have. I'm so locked in. If I just do my job and deny him, make him go left, keep him out of the middle, we're going to win. When I come out to that jump ball, all I was thinking about was what I have to do to shut this guy down. And sometimes there were tall orders. Sometimes there were guys I could check. Sometimes I needed help. But the days of putting your best defender on a kid for the whole game, I don't think a lot of coaches are doing that anymore. And that's how you end up with these crazy stat lines where these guards are killing because they're just playing until they get the matchup they want.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And that's where you have to throw a little bit of variety every now and then. You got to switch it up every now and then. I'm not saying you got to do, you ain't got to go zone out of the timeout for the next 3 minutes, but you're coming back down. Hey, next time we come back down, let's get into this, little matchup zone or whatever zone you prefer. Right. And I feel like We saw, you get glimpses of it every now and then with Tommy, but you don't really get it in heavy dosages, and especially not last night when you saw, ASU was trying to take advantage. And listen, credit to ASU because you're right, they were hitting shots, and there was dudes that were hitting buckets that hadn't been hitting buckets all year. Let's just be real about that. But however, Arizona still has a responsibility to play high-level defense, and giving up 100 points to a team that is riddled with injury and only on 6 scholarship players for the game, and one of them goes out in the first minute of the game. Like, you just can't have that. You just can't have that. And it doesn't make me feel good as you head to Kansas for basically two games at a minimum, one against Kansas at KU, and then the other one is a Big 12 matchup against whoever is going to show up. But it's all on the line right now, and you got to play your best basketball of the season, and you got to get ready to go. Now, I have seen this movie before. To make anybody else feel better, I've seen this movie before where we are playing good at the end of the season, and we're locked in, and we roll right through the Pac-12, and we win the Pac-12 championship, and the vibes are high, and then we get to the tournament. Meh. Okay, I've seen that movie before. Well, I don't know if I can necessarily say that that's what's going to happen with this team, because this team has been a little unpredictable, as you can see.
I don't like 3 of their last 4 games. Obviously, I don't like the BYU game. I don't like the ASU game. I don't like the Iowa State game. And for me, knowing how you want
Utah wasn't even that pretty either.
The Utah was, it was Utah. They've never really threatened them, but it wasn't a convincing blowout. And that, to me, you're talking 4 consecutive games where we did not see the best Arizona team. So from a coaching standpoint, you want to feel like your team is progressing and trending in the right direction, but you just had 4 consecutive games below your level of ability. Regardless of whether you won them or not, you just played 4 games that you can look at them and say, we need to work on some stuff. The BYU thing, okay, but you gave up a lot of points, some bad calls at the end didn't go your way. That's fine. But at the end of the day, I don't like the fact that you got to throw out your last 2 game tapes. You're not watching the Iowa State game. There's nothing to learn there. You got bullied, pushed around. You didn't play well. They jumped on you with some threes. The game was close. You got it under single digit a couple of times, but you never really in striking distance. So if I'm prepping for postseason, I'm really not watching Iowa State. You know how you match up with them. You played them twice. I'm not learning anything from that game. I'm damn sure throwing out the Arizona State tape. I'm not watching that. I'm going to watch. I mean, if you want to harp on defense, there's plenty of stuff to pick apart on the defensive side of the ball. But do you really want to ride the team and create doubt and uncertainty this late in the season? I mean, coaching is a fine art. It's a balance. You're talking about psychology. Do you beat your guys up over giving up 100 points to ASU, or do you just take the win and on to the next and hope that those ghosts and those demons don't revisit you later on down the line? That's a tough call. I mean, that's why they pay Tommy the big bucks. It's his decision. I'm sure his attention to detail, I know today in films, he was getting in guys' asses about what happened last night defensively. But at the same time, every team in the country has players in which their mentality is fragile. You don't want to go too hard because everybody's been going hard since November. It is March now. It's time for all the chips to get pushed into the middle of the table, and you want your guys in the best headspace possible. So who's to say? But I just know from a coaching standpoint, I wouldn't go back and rewatch either one of those 2 games because you're not going to build any confidence looking at those tapes.
No, not at all. Not at all. And I think as a player, you know that. I think as a player, I mean, what are we going to learn from this? We know we didn't play at a high level. I can go back and watch the game tape for myself to see that, I played like an a-hole. Like, I know that. Like, I would say that about myself in college. Like, before coach even turned on the tape, I was just like, I'm about to get it. Yeah. I know it's coming. Like,
you're right.
I gave up 4 back doors in consecutive possessions. Like, I know I'm getting it, right? And listen, last night, I will say this. The offense was encouraging, but again, like, this is where you just don't know. Like, what are we? Are we are we starting to find our groove offensively? You scored 93 against BYU and you score 110 against, ASU, but it's ASU and their defense wasn't exactly spectacular either. So I don't really know. I can't recall the last time I felt so uncertain about a team before. Like, it is very inconsistent.
Yeah, what jumps out to me is, the ASU game was played exactly how it felt. It felt like no one believed Arizona State was a threat, and that's exactly how Arizona played. They played like they never really felt like there was a possibility for them to lose. They were content to trade buckets, and we're better than you, so over 40 minutes time, we'll win. And they were right, but it just made for a very disappointing game. If you're an Arizona fan looking at that game, you wanted to see them go on a run, get up 20, and you wanted to be leaving McHale Center with 3 or 4 minutes to go, and get into your car and beating the traffic. But with 3 minutes to go, it was a 3-point game. And Arizona fans were not comfortable. They were like, what the hell is going on? They cut it to 3. And I remember they took the timeout, and I was doing the broadcast, and I looked at Roxy, and I said, this is reminiscent of they hit that three-quarter court shot to win. You don't want to let them you don't want to be in a one possession game with a team like Arizona State, because as luck would have it, things can go bad when you play a team like that. They've got nothing to lose. They've only got 6 players. God forbid they have the ball with a chance to win, because then anything can happen. I mean, they've been cooking us all night from 3 or 4 different guys getting buckets. So Arizona was able to avoid that. But it just wasn't a feel-good win. It was senior day. It kind of felt like, my high school coach used to say, you can't just throw your shoes out there and expect to win. And that's what I think Arizona did last night. They just threw their shoes out there, and they got to win. But it's about habits at this point of the season, and they gotta get back in the habit of playing better defense.
I felt like it was more of like an NCAA tournament game. Like, because I was like, this is the scenario where you played with your food for too long, and now this team has cut the lead to 3 with about 5 minutes left to go in the game, and you're in a timeout, and you can listen, you ain't at home in the tournament. There is no home crowd spurring you on in the tournament. If you got to play in Seattle or you got to go play in Denver, you ain't going to have that crowd there. It's going to be maybe a fraction of that, maybe an eighth if you're lucky.
And to your other point, when you're in the tournament, the crowd always cheers for the upset. They always cheer for the upset. The neutral fans that are there waiting for the next game, or maybe their team played before, yeah, they're in there just to be agitators. They want to see the upset. They have no dog in the fight, but they find out who the higher seed is, and they root against that team. That's just the nature of the tournament.
That's exactly what's going to happen. And if you don't take care of business earlier on, when Austin Mason hits that 3 to cut the lead to 3, guess what? They're hype, the crowd's hype. Now it's like you're playing at an away game on their home court.
Yep.
And that's how things can flip. And that to me is like, that's the message. Like, you can't play around when you're playing in the Big 12. You can't play around in the Big 12 conference tournament. You can't play around in the NCAA tournament. I don't care who they got to play. They might face another Ivy League team. I ran 20 simulations today, Corey, off of evanmia.com, 20 simulations. And in Arizona's little section of the bracket, there was Missouri, and then they had to play Yale. I forgot who Missouri had to play. One time did they make it to the Elite Eight. One other time they made it to the Sweet 16. So 2 of the 20, 10% only made it to the Sweet 16. The other 13, they got eliminated in the second round, and the other 5, they got upset in the first round by Yale. That's
not. I mean,
that's the simulation. It's not
right, but still, I mean,
like it did have them beating Auburn, which was kind of funny in the Sweet 16, but it is what it is. But listen, there's a lot left to go. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon, but you got to take care of business right now. And we're going to talk more about that business right after this. I just said it's not a sprint, but it is a race, and it's a race to the end, and you can actually go visit a race out at NASCAR. Watch NASCAR as it returns to Phoenix Raceway, and that is March 7th through the 9th. That is this weekend, matter of fact, out of Phoenix Raceway. If you've never been there, I actually went there last year at this time. First time I've ever gone to a NASCAR event. Didn't know what to expect. It was actually really, really cool. There was a lot of cool stuff going on. They have a lot of vendors. They have a lot of, big displays, food, the whole 9 yards. It's a great environment, and the people at Phoenix Raceway do a first-class operation from top to bottom. So if you ever get a chance to go, you should go this weekend. The Shriners Classic, Shriners Children's 500 at Phoenix Raceway. There's nothing like witnessing a live NASCAR battle at 200 miles per hour on this 1 mile oval raceway in the foothills of the Estrella Mountains. 40 drivers will compete in names like Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney, Denny Hamlin, Ross Chastain, Bubba Wallace, and 2024 NASCAR Cup Series champion Joey Logano. All you got to do is get your tickets now at phoenixraceway.com. And as always, when we're sitting here talking about all the cool stuff that's going on in the world, one of those cool things is a Carol Royce team, because you got to buy a house, right? Corey, I don't know how long ago you bought your crib. It's a nice crib, by the way. I bought mine recently, about 4 years ago, and I wish I had the people at Carol Royce on my side. Not saying anything bad about my real estate agent, but Carol Royce has got the hookup. She's got the entire Rolodex of people at her disposal. She knows things that are coming on the market before they know that it's coming on the market. That's how good her squad is. And if you're trying to sell your home, guess what? She has that entire database at your disposal as well, and you can sell your house. And if you can't find the right deal, guess what? Carol Royce and her team will hook you up as well. So go check out Carol Royce by going to carolroyceteam.com and find yourself a nice, fantastic agent that's going to take care of you and your house and your money for the best, in the biz. So there you go. carolroyceteam.com. Terms and conditions do apply. And then finally, I know this is a triple threat today. You see this hat. It's the PHNX hat. It's a nice golf hat. If you have not had an opportunity to play in one of our golf tournaments, you've got to come out. We have got a special one. You usually do the Keep It 100 tournament, which is like, it's the break right before we get into the hot season. This time we're switching it up. Masters weekend, Saturday of Masters weekend. You can go out and play with the PHNX peeps out at Dobson Ranch for the Green Jacket Open. The Green Jacket Open, it's going to be electric. Get your foursome out there, and whoever wins is going to get a whole bunch of prizes, going to get a green jacket, the whole 9 yards. It's a scramble tournament. 2:00 start time, because we are watching the Masters on Masters Saturday all day at Dobson Ranch. So come out, hang out. Maybe we can put some cash on the table and, go root for your favorite golfer to finish at the top of the leaderboard before we go out there and hit that scramble. So come on out, go to gophnx.com/events and get your tickets today. All right. One last thing that I did see from, I believe it was the Haslam metrics. I didn't even know that he had this, but he has this. It's called the PTF. It's a rating, and it's the paper tiger factor. And Corey, you know what a paper tiger is. That means you look good, but when the rubber meets the road, you don't really show up, right? Arizona, in that paper tiger factor rating, is 357th, which means they're at the basically what Haslam is saying is, like, when you got to face the big dogs, you don't really show up. You can take that rating for whatever it is, but at the same time, I'm sitting there and I'm looking at, like, well, yeah, they lost to Duke. They lost to Houston, took a full court shot to beat, Iowa State just to send it to overtime. Like, we keep waiting for Arizona to have that moment where they just rise up and they dominate. I don't know if that's going to happen. They've got to play smart, shrewd basketball, and they got to play elite at both ends. They just do. And they have to be as efficient as possible. Defensively, they slipped up a little bit. Offensively, they've kind of picked it up, I feel like. I feel like they're getting back into a good, solid rhythm. But again, the competition and the defense is, you can question that. Overall, I don't know how I feel about this team. And, Kevin put out a tweet today. And said, I feel like they only got 2 wins in them in the tournament. It's hard not to look at that and feel like, yeah, I can see why you would feel that way.
No, confidence is a combination of, experience and optimism. I'm optimistic because I can look back on what I've accomplished or what I've done or the way I've performed, so that way then I'm confident. Some people have a natural confidence that comes out of thin air. They're just confident for no reason at all. But I think the average sports fan only can have confidence built off of an experience. And right now, we've got a good size sample of games, 30 games. Arizona's 20-10. Where I would try to talk Kev off the ledge is Arizona has 10 losses. Who of those 10 losses isn't going to the NCAA tournament? I think you can make the argument that Arizona strength of schedule is insane. Nobody's faced more credible fighters in the ring than Arizona, to use a boxing analogy. And their losses aren't losses to teams that aren't going anywhere. So I would offer that as a counter, but at the same time, I will admit, you and I discussed this before. We've seen both Arizonas. We've seen the Arizona that could go to the Final Four, and we've seen the Arizona that might not get out of the first weekend. I, as an alum and a fan, want to believe in the first Arizona team. I want to believe that this is a team that's been through so much. The losses, I don't think, are seen in the right light. I think this team has tremendous upside. They're definitely better than they were when they played UCLA. They're way better than that now. They've got more experience. Players have come along. Players have stepped up. But I think what hangs everyone up is no one would dare call this team consistent. And that is what's giving people a little bit of the anxiety.
So when you were saying consistency, one of the things I think about in the tournament is if you don't have consistency, you better have somebody that shows up. You better have somebody that's going to try to bail you out, because if you don't have it that night as a team, somebody's got to step up. When I look at some familiar patterns in the past, and usually in the NCAA tournament, this is where it kind of goes. You always have one player that seemingly dominates a game. And this season, Arizona has had similar matchups where a single player, for whatever reason, decided, yeah, tonight's the night. And Corey, you kind of went over some of these numbers.
Yeah, you're talking about the guard play, or just in general, it's like
guys that are scoring, let's just say 24 points or more.
Yeah, there's always a guy who gets a hot hand. And like I said, I think that's a byproduct of their approach defensively. They switch everything. So he gets a couple on this guy, a couple of fouls on this guy's late to rotate. Next thing you know, he's got 24 points, and there's 4 or 5 guys responsible for it. There wasn't just one guy who stuck with him through thick and thin. And the other thing is, it sends a message to your teammates. Okay, now I can focus on my guy. I got to give him some help on a screen. I got to give him some help on a curl, but mostly I got to focus on my job because he's got that. That's literally what KJ Lewis can do defensively. I think Jaden Bradley can do it defensively. Just give them a guy and say, hey, shut him down. And then everybody else has to hold their own. But you're right. There's always guards that get off against Arizona, and it makes life miserable. And in a lot of their losses, they were shot out of the gym by some great shooting players.
Well, let's go over some of those players that have gotten off on Arizona. Obviously, at the very beginning of the season, Townsend, 41 points. Cooper Flagg came to McHale, 24. DeVries out in the Bahamas had 26. And then Fears. He had 26, and he hasn't been heard of since. And then you have a whole nother list of players. Like we just mentioned Austin Mason the other night, but there's also, let's go through this list real quick. We have Texas Tech Toppin had 20. McDaniel murdered Arizona down the stretch at K-State, 22. Uzon and Cryer combined basically single-handedly carried Houston to that win in the second half, combined 34 points. Saunders with 23, including the game-winning free throws. And then Momcilovic the other night, I said this before we even played them. I said, we didn't match up against Momcilovic the first time. And watching him play against Houston, I was like, yeah, that dude can play. He can hit the outside shot. He's got a nice little inside game. He's crafty, and he did Arizona in. So I just, again, I know there's a wrinkle that they can throw to kind of, pacify some of that, but we haven't seen it. We haven't seen it yet. I don't know if we will see it.
Here's the thing. You've got a 30-second possession, right? Mm-hmm. You've got 3, sometimes 4 perimeter players, 4 distinctive players with different tendencies, different abilities, and different defensive rules. So when you come across half court and you get ready to play defense, you have to constantly be changing gears mentally, almost like a car's transmission. Okay, I got the guy who drives hard with his right hand. Now I'm on the guy who I can't leave because he's a 3-point shooter. Now I'm on the guy who wants to use a ball screen. You have to constantly know the tendencies of everybody you get on, because if you don't, that's where problems start. And one of the things I noticed when I watched Arizona play is it happens 3 or 4 times a game where a basket is scored, and then there's this WTF moment where they're all looking at each other and trying to figure out who was responsible for who, because somebody forgot the rules of the guy they were guarding. It's like, if you're on this guy and he goes to set a screen, we're trapping. If we're on this guy and he goes to set a screen, you're going underneath because he can pop out and shoot. It is such a mental load to constantly be switching defensively that you end up with not a lot of consistency. And this is not a shot at Tommy's approach, but it's just a different way of coaching where, I'm from the era of literally your man is your man. And if you can't guard him, you don't need to be in an Arizona jersey because we recruited you, not him. So that was the pressure that was put on us. You would get crucified for giving up your defensive assignment. Corey, why did Miles have to switch with you? You should have fought your way through that screen. That guy's 6'8". Miles shouldn't have to switch out on him. You're 6'7". You get out on him. You can't give up your defensive responsibility. And at the end of the game, when coach goes to the stat sheet and he sees that Brett Berry had 31 points, he going to look at Corey Williams like, man, he torched you. And then tomorrow in films, we're going to look at all the ways that he torched you. If we need to help you, you don't need to be on the floor at Arizona. Now, that's a throwback. That's 30 years ago. It's not the same coach, not the same team, certainly not the same time. But the point I'm trying to make is sometimes less is more. When you're switching everything, it increases the opportunity for confusion. And we used to, you play pickup. And I played, there is the opportunity to just straight up punk somebody on defense.
Oh, yeah.
When you stay with by 5 or 6, some of these dudes will quit after 10 minutes. You get in their jersey, you can take dudes out the game. They run up and down the court for 15 minutes and they don't get a look. Eventually they stop trying. But that's what you can do. You put KJ Lewis on somebody all game, he'll probably punk them. Eventually, they'll just quit because kids don't want to look bad nowadays. I'm not, man. It's not going to be my night. Oh, well. Now, some coaches have dogs that will never give up. But yeah. I like throwing a guy. I like challenging players individually. And, Houston, they switch a lot too. But they have a different mentality. They don't respect anybody. No matter who I switch it, I'm not letting you score. I'm not letting you shoot. I'm not letting you drive. I'm not letting you post up. I play you. Everybody's Michael Jordan. That's how Houston plays defense. All of y'all can hurt us. We're not giving you nothing. And it works for them.
It does. It absolutely does. You said sometimes less is more. Oh, man. Trey, I love you. I didn't mean to use this transition. But last night, Corey said some wild stuff on the telecast. And he said that Trey Townsend is Arizona's second best scorer. And, oh, my gosh, you hit a nerve on social media. But I'll be honest, Corey, from the outside looking in, and you look at Trey's production, you're like, what is this dude talking about, right?
Of course, yeah.
Can you please explain to the people what you meant and why you think that was a legitimate take?
It is not only the legitimate take, it is a true take. See, it's my job to know stuff. They literally pay me to know things. And I understand the casual fan, the Arizona fan, maybe they don't know. Half of the people had never even heard of Trey Townsend until they announced he was coming to Arizona. Most people don't even understand why Tommy Lloyd thought he was the biggest get in the offseason for Arizona basketball. Most people are unaware of Oakland. They think it's Oakland, California. They don't know Trey Townsend. They've never seen Trey Townsend play. The only thing they're judging him on is what he's done in the Arizona jersey, which is fair. But my statement was, he's probably the second most skilled offensive player in an Arizona uniform next to Caleb Love. And if you saw him dismantle Kentucky in the tournament last year, if you knew he was player of the year in his conference, if you saw him getting double-doubles in the variety of ways he was unstoppable in the post, he could make threes. He's not being asked to do any of that at Arizona, but he can. And that was my point. But I'm not responsible for what other people don't know. I'm not responsible for the fact that other people don't go on YouTube and see what I'm talking about. Because honestly, to be honest with you, if more people knew what Trey Townsend was capable of, they'd be even more frustrated with him than they already are. Most people are dismissing him as a piece of the puzzle. He's sometimey. No, folks. Go back and look at the boy get buckets. He is a monster, but he can't play like that at Arizona.
But I would argue that I think that's a big reason why people are frustrated. That there's a portion of this fan base that saw Trey play in the tournament last year and saw him get buckets, and they're like, man, and people were excited. They're like, oh man, we're getting Trey Townsend. This is going to be dope. And then he gets here and he doesn't live up to the hype. And now you got to ask yourself, was it a flash in the pan against those good teams, or is it just who he is? Like that's. And listen, this is not, I'm not trying to say
and I'm glad you brought up that point, because here's the reality of it. I played in a lot of jerseys over my career. High school, I was the man. The ball went through me, 29 points a game, blah, 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 blah. Third team All-American. I get to Arizona, I'm nobody. I'm setting screens and rebounding for 2.5 years. My junior and senior year, I finally got to shoot. I was still a team player. As a senior, I was a role player on a Sweet 16 team that interviewed with 5 NBA teams as a role player at Arizona. Then life got real. I became a professional, right back to 29 points a game, having to hoop to feed myself, having to hoop to pay my mortgage. When you're the man, it is a completely different rhythm than when you're on a team with Jaden Bradley, Caleb Love, Carter Bryant, Toby Awaka. I mean, come on. There's not enough basketballs for Trey they don't even run plays for Trey. They don't. They tried to early. And if you remember in the UCLA game, who was that last play for to win the game? Who did Tommy go to? But he lost it out of bounds. Mm-hmm. He's going to Trey. I guarantee you right now, Trey's game has only improved since last year. But what he's being asked to do, the way he's being asked to play, and the other thing, to be honest with you, and I can see where Arizona fans might be like, what the hell is Corey talking about? You've got to perform to keep getting touches and become more and more of the offense. And to that point, I will agree. He's had opportunities to show the player that he was. He was never going to get 17, 18 shots a game like he was getting last year. He knew that coming here. But in the spaces that he's been allowed to play, you see flashes of it. He scores a bucket, he drains a three, and I'm just sitting there early in the game and I'm like, it is so easy for him. But it also, to your point, it's so infrequent. So it's frustrating. I stand by my statement. If we was in the gym picking players to play pickup, give me Trey, because I already know what he can do. Nobody else can score. I mean, Caleb can score. Jaden's, but flat out offensive talent? Nah, come on, man. I'm talking about hoopers. I'm not talking about who has the prettiest jumper. That's Del Orso. I'm not talking about who gets a nice dunks, Visar, Toby. I'm talking about actual ball in hand. You can run an ISO for them. They got the step back, the fadeaway, the three, the layup, the up and under. Trey got all of that. It just, most people haven't seen it. And to your point, yeah, a lot of people that do know about it are frustrated. But I stand by my statement. Offensively skilled, if we were in the gym, not even a question. Not even a question.
All right. I love the passion, Corey. Like I like how you broke that down because
I wish he had the numbers. I wish he had the numbers so that I wouldn't have to defend it like this. But I'm just talking. My statement was about skill. I didn't say leading scorer. I didn't say production. I'm just talking about the man's skill set. And you made a great point. It's extremely frustrating because I know we all know what he can do. Well, not we all, some people don't. Maybe there are some fans out there that are knowledgeable about Trey's pass and seen him play. But yeah, I can see their point. That probably was like, wow, a crazy thing that they heard, but that's how I see it.
Yeah, I got you. So we got some people in the chat that has some pretty good takes. Sean, thank you so much, Sean, for tuning in. He said he was great at Oakland, but it hasn't translated at Arizona very much. And then Fanatics Podcast. He said this team is wild because they could beat anyone, but almost lose to anyone as well. Not saying who they've lost to has been scrubs, but they either play superb in sync or in losses it's poor shots, etc. And then Sean said skill, yes, but his play on the court dictates the overall narrative. And scoring 10 points only once, since the Samford game, which was against Oklahoma State, that ain't going to cut it at the University of Arizona when you're considered one of their higher profile, acquisitions over the course of the summer. So, but listen, he's got that. That's the great thing about March, right? There's just so many people that kind of have these years, and then boom, all you need is you just need one good run. Have a good 2-week stretch, and guess what? You're a legend. Just
let put this in your pipe and smoke it.
Some people might say that you were doing that last night when you made that comment.
Here's the other thing. He's talking about how Trey looks now, and as opposed to what he did at Oakland. Don't forget, he was supposed to be playing with Crevis. Think about that. You go out and get a four that's strong as a bull and can shoot the three opposite the biggest player I've ever seen in a long. Crevis can dunk without pretty much getting off the ground. He's a legit 7-footer. That was the original plan. Then all of a sudden that plan goes out the window. And now you don't have that black hole center of gravity, Omar Ballo type guy that made Zoo a good player. Zoo feasted off that. Pella feasted off that. KJ feasted off that. Like when you don't have that center of gravity 5, I played the 4. I loved playing with Joseph Blair because what you gonna do? You gonna let me shoot a 3 or you gonna let Joseph get a dunk? Pick your poison. We don't have a pick your poison type offense, and that's been what our Arizona fans have been griping about. So his role, his productivity, I get all the criticism. I don't argue or push back on any of it, but I know you go from being the man to being set up to play a certain way. That goes out the window. Things change. The offense changes. And now you've never really found your rhythm. But here's my thing. And now that we're talking about it, I'm actually rooting for a Trey Townsend heroic tournament in the NCAA to get the haters off his back. I would love to see that because I know what it's like to go from being the man to being a bench player to being the man again. Like it's a hard space to be in because he just wants the team to win. When have you seen Trey on Twitter or social media or post-game press conference complaining about not getting the ball? When have you seen Trey not applauding his teammates? When have you seen him being anything other than the perfect teammate at Arizona? I think that deserves a little bit of recognition. This guy was the man last year. And now he's blending in. He's taking hits and the criticism, but he's better than he was last year. And at the end of the day, he's a young person too. So mentally, he's not going to be as tough as some of us adults. But I commend him, and I will admit he's probably not the player Arizona fans expected or wanted to see. I don't want to sound like I'm making excuses, but I really hope people understand that I'm trying to give an explanation, because if I was going to be playing opposite a 7-footer, which I did, that's how I got my look to the NBA. I was getting wide open looks because we had guys that were taking up space and creating all kinds of opportunities for everybody else. And Arizona right now doesn't have that back to the basket big man that would allow Trey to just, wreak havoc and do the things he normally does. But
on the show, we create T-shirts apparently, and we made one last week. It was Caleb Love Forever. This week, Corey has accidentally branded the new shirt. Instead of Swisher House, we're going to call it Hater House. And we'll have Caleb and Trey Townsend in it because, listen, they got the most haters out of any of these players at all. Like, right. It's remarkable how much hate that they can get from time to time. And I would honestly, I think about this moment, and I hope and I pray that this does happen. For those two individuals, I couldn't even imagine if they were able to lead Arizona to a Final Four, what kind of, I don't feel like they need the validation because I feel like they're going to be satisfied. They're satisfied with their careers as is. Like, they can live on it and be like, hey, I performed at a high level. I was a top-notch D1 athlete. Caleb Love won, awards. So did Trey Townsend. Like, they if their career ended today, it'd be all right. However, that sweet taste of Hater-ade, you just can't beat it. You can't beat it. And I hope they get it. I really hope they get it because I'll tell you what, man, maybe not Trey, because I haven't been down on Trey, but I haven't really been supportive of Trey like I have for Caleb because I know, Caleb's got it. He can do it. And so, if Caleb cuts down the net, I'm going to lose my damn mind. I might lose my credential. I'm going to lose it. I swear I'm going to lose it.
So I'll tell you a quick story. I was number 32 in high school. When I came to Arizona, I requested number 32 because I'm just stupid and I had no idea that the greatest Arizona player ever wore number 32. So they're handing out the practice gear and they gave me number 33. And I'm like, what's up with 32? They're like, boy, are you sick in the brain? He's currently in the NBA having an MVP season. Sean Elliott is Arizona basketball. I said that. I told that quick story to let you to hope fans understand that the shoes that you try to fill when you put on that Arizona jersey, most players cannot imagine how big those shoes are. But the fans know, because the fans been watching since the 80s and the 70s and the 90s. The fans know, oh, you're no Jordan Hill. You're no Channing Frye. You're no Mike Bibby. You're no Andre Iguodala. We want you to play like X, Y, and Z. And so even when that kid comes out and gives his best effort, the fan base has knowledge of previous players and expectations. And as much as coach told you where the bar was, and as much as you thought you knew, you're still going to catch flack when the fans feel like you underachieve. And Arizona fans are so passionate and they love the game so much and they love the team so much that when they lose or they don't play well, the fans have to find a place to put their feelings and emotions. And now we're in the era of social media. And unfortunately, they can just go out there and vent and pour out that emotion, and they can target it at young people. They can target it at the coach. They can target it at me, and it's really just a question of whether you pay attention to all that or not. But these guys all live in their phones. So to your point, yeah, I would love to see some vindication because you know what? Trey lost that ball against UCLA, and everybody in the locker room had his back. That's okay, dog. We'll get him next time. Come on, man. Keep your head up. When the guys you grind with have your back, Twitter and X and Instagram can't mess with that. Don't nobody care what some strangers are saying. When your brothers are lifting you up after you have a bad game, when Caleb doesn't shoot well, his brothers are still playing and joking with him and egging him on and encouraging him. That speaks louder than anybody on social media. So that bubble that you're in, that band of brothers, that's important. And I know all those guys are rooting for Trey. They're rooting for Caleb, KJ Lewis out there playing with a banged up wrist because he gives a damn. He cares about his teammates, and I think it would be sweet to see those guys have some success because I really hope they're strong enough to ignore a lot of the negative criticism. Not that the fans don't have a right to speak their opinion, because they certainly do. That's what makes Arizona great. I tell people all the time, At least our fans give a damn. Yeah, you play bad, you're going to hear it. Guess what? You play bad at Stanford, don't nobody say nothing. You play bad at Cal, you play bad at A, don't nobody care. Here, you play bad, you may not be able to go on social media for a couple of days.
Actually, if you play bad at Stanford or Cal, you're going to hear it because there's only 8 people in the crowd and you can hear everybody.
now you being messy. You being messy. But no, I mean it's the gift and the curse. You come play at Arizona, you're gonna be loved forever in the city of Tucson. But the shoes that you have to fill are big. But that's what you know when you sign to come here. You know, hey, they're gonna compare me to XYZ, and I gotta be ready for that. So it's fair. I'm not knocking the fans for that. I just hope the fans don't get personal. Say what you want about performance on the basketball court, but, don't get personal with young kids. That's not cool.
Yeah, I for the most part, I think they've stayed out of that lane. And I know that I think there's a large portion of people that are on Twitter, and when people cross that line and they get personal, yeah, they get it coming back to them like tenfold. So I'll say, like, listen, like, it's kind of like, hey, I can talk crap about my kid, but you can't. And that's kind of the feel, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
sure,
we can go here, but like, no, don't go there. The other thing I wanted to say is just like overall, when we're talking about this team and moving forward, the major theme here has been consistency. And Kev, welcome back, superstar Kev. There he is, the host of our PHNX Wildcats show. Kev, you said you had a question for Corey regarding that.
Yeah, because this team at times, like the defense has been incredible at times this year, and then in the last recent stretch has been terrible. And fans, like we're not in the locker room, so we don't know. We see the team when they play, and we see the team when they play next time. And so, from your perspective, what are some of the intangibles that provide consistency on the court? Like, what makes a team like Houston able to go out and play pretty much the exact same way every game versus a team like Arizona, by chance, who are kind of Jekyll and Hyde in some ways?
I'm going to say this, and please don't put me in the tabloids and make me go viral. But unfortunately,
my man said tabloids.
Yeah, I'm going old school. The Inquirer, or the Globe.
Like I'll be checking out at the grocery store, and I'm see Corey's face.
That was before Instagram and Facebook. It was the Inquirer and Globe and the Examiner. All them rags in the grocery store aisle, you would get them. We are too tied to Caleb Love's three-point shot. It literally is our barometer. Like, he, as good as he is, I think we are too sensitive and dependent on that shot falling. When it falls, you're done. Get out of here. He made 5 or 6 of them, game's over. You're not going to beat us. If it doesn't, there's not a second option or a second tool. When you put together a team, you're like, this is option 1, this is option 2, this is option 3. Which option do you want us to beat the crap out of you with? We'll let you take away Caleb, but then we're going to beat you with this. If you take away that, then we're going to beat you with this. That's consistency offensively. When all the guys walking out on the court know, if the ball comes to me, I'm going to do my thing. If it goes over there, he's going to do, like, we're all just standing and waiting to see what you're going to make us do. Arizona has option 1. Caleb on the pin down, Caleb in transition, Caleb on a curl, Caleb on the one dribble. Some of these threes he just makes on his own. He shakes, bakes, and steps back. But when that shot doesn't fall, I think everybody knows what the percentages are, what the win-losses are, and we should have by now developed a very solid second or third option. And I would challenge any Arizona fan, if you're being brutally honest with yourself, what's our second best offensive option if Caleb's not making the 3?
I think it's a collective. I don't think it's it's not a single play or anything like that. I think it's a collective. It's a little bit of everything.
If you don't have a number 2 option, you don't have nothing. It's like the team that tells you they have 2 quarterbacks. You don't have 1 quarterback. It doesn't work that way. It was Chris Mills, Khalid Reeves. It was Khalid Reeves, Damon Stoudemire. You know what I'm saying? Every year we had a pecking order offensively. He shoots first. Then if he don't shoot, then he shoots. That's the way you build a team. You can't say if Caleb's not making a shot, then we're going to have offense by committee. Because guess what? Offense by committee is trash. Offense by committee is trash. Houston didn't have offense by committee the last 10 minutes against Arizona and McHale Center. You remember what they did? Who was shooting the ball? Was it LJ Cryer and Uzan?
Mm-hmm.
Who else was touching the ball? Keith Sweat. Nobody.
Nobody.
We're playing real basketball here. I don't want no off-brand 6th or 7th man shooting the ball in the last 5 minutes. That's how you get beat. You the 6th or 7th man for a reason. If you're a starter and you're getting the NIL bag and you're the top guy at Houston, well, damn it, the last 4 minutes, Kelvin Sampson, okay, do your thing. What do we bring you here for? You telling me Cooper Flagg's not getting the ball the last 5 minutes of the game? And if they double Cooper, believe you me, there's some dudes ready to eat. That's consistency. You have to have a pecking order. And I'm not knocking Arizona. I'm just saying that certain rules of basketball are eternal. It's Jordan, then it's Pippen. It's Kobe, then it's Shaq. LeBron, then D Wade. Like, you have to have a second option when you take option one off the table. But this kumbaya, we all gonna lock arms and contribute. It's good. I've always said Arizona's unbeatable when they got 4 or 5 guys in double figures. But that second option, when that 3-point shot is not falling, sometimes Toby has a big game. Sometimes it's Vesar. You know, Del Orso, when's the last game he's made multiple threes?
Colorado, maybe.
I mean, that was the bottom of the Big 12. So KJ Lewis has been steady. Remember in the beginning of the year, we were all complaining because it was Jaden Bradley and nobody.
Yeah.
And he's stepped back and stopped looking to score as much because he's got to play 38 minutes and facilitate and be out there
Corey,
and play D.
Corey, in the words of Prime, we coming.
Yeah.
I promise you. Jaden Bradley I feel like Jaden's been setting everybody up for the real. Like,
he's sandbagging us.
I feel like he's just like, hey man, I'm gonna just get into a nice lather. I'm gonna get some work in. I'm gonna let my guys work.
Yeah.
But once we hit that clock and that tournament starts.
Yeah, I think because you remember.
Because I saw that last year.
Who was the only one balling in the final minutes against Clemson?
Jaden Bradley.
He was like, look, this isn't my team, but if y'all finna be half-stepping, let me go ahead and try to get us back in it. He played with some fire and some energy, and I think KJ's evolved, and I think you're right. I love having Jaden Bradley on the team in a 1 or 2 possession game in the last 5 minutes because he gets to the free throw line. He makes a lot of great plays. He's strong as hell. He makes his free throws. He could be the X factor.
Corey, I feel like, you know, because my parents are deaf, I grew up watching body language and understanding the nuance of body language, really facial expressions, mannerisms, the whole 9 yards, right? And I'm going to say I'm somewhat of an expert in body language, okay? When I saw Jaden Bradley, who does not say anything on the court, he's pretty timid and pretty quiet, right? He leads by example.
He got a T last night, though.
Yeah,
he'll talk during free throws, but like that's about.
Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah. Anyway, you guys are distracting me from my point. What I'm trying to say is, is there was a play where he hit that spin move, you know, like the down the lane spin move, and he hit the basket, and it was basically like a 1-on-2. And the look that he had was like, if y'all don't want to come, then I'm going to take off without you. I am not waiting for you guys anymore. It was like a handing over, a passing of the torch, so to speak. And when he hit that fadeaway 3 on the wing, it was like I did everything I could to try and win this game, and y'all didn't come with me. This is on you. And I very much became a Jaden Bradley fan that day, sitting there courtside, watching his mannerisms and the way he was operating on that court. So I feel like Jaden knows who he is.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like it's about to come back out in this tournament. He's not going to one thing I know about Jaden Bradley, he is not going to let this team lose because he didn't play his damnedest.
And see, that's the thing where, as much as I feel what Kev is saying about, maybe 2 and done, people have to understand we got 2 guys on our team that can literally take over a game. Most schools don't have one. We have two in Caleb and Jaden, where Jaden's the point guard. He don't have to check with anybody. The ball is always in his hands. And Caleb has the ability, and I said it last night on the broadcast, he could put your lights out. You could go on a nice...
For those of you streaming on fast or on our streaming channels, please go over to gophnx.com to catch the rest of the show. Go ahead, Corey.
So with Caleb, he can put your lights out. You can be on a run or do whatever. Caleb Love can come down and put up 6 points with the flick of his wrist like that. So we have game changers, and I think I like our chances in close games. But yeah, I think the consistency question, it's a question of guys knowing exactly what's going to happen every night. And there's never been a night where I think Arizona's known that from an offensive standpoint. Now, there have been good games. We got great production from the bigs last night, but then again, there was 113 points to go around. So I'm sure everybody's stat line looked good last night. But man, I just would like to see a team that, not that I don't want to see Caleb shooting it, but I would love to see another 15, 16 point a night guy in his sleep. No matter what Caleb is doing, this other situation is happening as well. And going back to the old discussion from a few minutes ago, maybe people feel like that was supposed to be Trey Townsend. You can't put that on Carter Bryant. He's a freshman. Vasar is very good, but Vasar, in the paint, putbacks, lobs, when you let him run free, yeah, he gets his points. But the question mark is, how is Arizona going to play if Caleb Love has a cold shooting night in the tournament? And I think that's the box that all of us Arizona fans are crammed into right now. And that's a hell of a lot to put on that young man because he's a great kid. He's a tremendous talent. No one wants it more than he does. We all know his story. He wants the redemption. He wants that great narrative out there. And he deserves to have his moment in the sun. And like you said, I can't think of anybody who I'd be more happy for. If Caleb Love can shoot Arizona into a Final Four, he's already going to be a Wildcat legend for the shot against Iowa State. But I think the fans want a little more out of this team.
Absolutely. Kev, appreciate that question, man.
Yeah, of course.
Before we wrap up, we have a couple things. Big 12 tournament. So for those of you that don't know, Arizona is basically all but locked into the 3 seed. They would need Texas Tech to basically lose out against Colorado and ASU, or lose at least one game for that to happen, for them to move up to 2. They can't drop down to 4 because they own the tiebreaker between them and BYU, because the number 2 seed would be Texas Tech, and Arizona went 1-1 against Texas Tech, whereas BYU went 0-1. So they own the tiebreaker there. So they are basically locked into the 3 seed. Now, Saturday's game still matters. It doesn't really matter too much for Arizona because they're pretty much locked into that 3, like I said, but it does matter for Kansas. And here's why. If Kansas loses on Saturday, Kansas can find themselves anywhere between the 7 to the 9 seed, because there could be a 4-way tie between Kansas, TCU, West Virginia, and TCU. Oh, did I say TCU? And Baylor. It'd be a 4-way tie, which in that scenario, Kansas would drop all the way down to the 9 seed, and they would play on day 1 of the tournament, which is not somewhere you want to be.
They don't want to do that.
Baylor would then be the 6th seed, which matters to Arizona because that would be the most likely opponent for Arizona. So a lot of things still to be determined. There's still some shuffling going around, but man, it's going to be fun and exciting. And one last thing, listen, it was rivalry week this week when we played ASU, and last week we took a little dig at them. Well, I just wanted to say, Arizona's got NIL, and they spend their money in ways to try and get players, but listen, ASU has not been known to spend a lot of money in NIL, and they invested quite a bit into their basketball program. Especially one former alum. Roll the clip.
Kevin? Nowadays is the most important thing, just because kids want to, be compensated for their play and their work, and which, it makes sense. I wanted to be a part of helping, that the team and the school get players because, we're very, very great program and a great school. And if NIL is the problem, then I can help with that. So I'm still involved. Like I live, in Scottsdale. I'm there all the time. So it just made sense. And, I love being on campus.
Great program. I don't know about all that, but listen, James Harden took an L this year because that money did not go to a good cause. And unfortunately for him, maybe better investments are on their way in the future. I just wanted to throw that in there.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Wildcat fans, turn off your mics. You don't want to hear what I'm about to say.
Oh, come on. Do we have to end it like this?
First of all, Arizona State spent a fortune in NIL. Now, with 3 minutes to go, 6 players were down 3 at Arizona last night. What would have happened had Quaintance played, Freeman played, and Miller played?
Nothing. They still would have won.
Shit.
They still would have won, Corey.
Really?
If you know those guys are showing up, your mentality changes. You said that at the very beginning.
Okay. I'm just saying, Quaintance is only 17, and you can imagine what NIL they had to get him there. Sannon is a really good freshman, big NIL bag. I will come to Bobby's defense in this point alone. It was insane the amount of injuries that team went through. All the players they lost throughout the season. And do they belong at the bottom of the Big 12? They're not at the bottom. Well, they kind of are at the bottom of the Big 12. But I would ask people to consider the fact that the team that was put together never really saw the floor. It never did. Okay. And
I would give you that.
That's the only thing I would say. I'm not here caping for Bobby Hurley or ASU. God knows that's not what this is, but I got to keep it real. My friends and people that know me, they know I keep it real. You can't, it would be the same if we had gone out and lost Krevis, and, we're not complaining about having lost Krevis, but we didn't lose Toby, Kobe, and KJ as well. You know what I mean? So you got to look at these things from that standpoint. And I understand that the casual fan doesn't have time to look at all that. They're just like, ASU sucks. We want to fire Bobby Hurley, blah, 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 blah. Now, to this point, I'm surprised that Harden is throwing his hat in the NIL ring because I don't know his net worth, but I remember someone telling me he had a $400 million deal with Adidas, and Lord knows what he took in over the course of his NBA career. Hell, his tax liability has to be in the millions every year. So you get a guy like that throwing money to a collective, you can be in business for a long time. I mean, Harden himself could give them a $3 or $4 million NIL budget per year and never really feel it. So imagine this new landscape where NBA alums start, stroking checks to their alma maters. And I think some of them are getting around to doing it now. It's only been the third year of it. But, man, that could be a game changer because the truth is whatever money you hit the portal with, that's how good your team's going to be. Auburn is the number 1 team in the country, and their average age is 23. I'll repeat that. The average age of players on Auburn is 23. You ain't even supposed to be in college at 23. Back in the day, you was out at 22, your 21st birthday, your senior year, 21, 22, maybe. So whatever money you have to go grocery shopping is going to dictate the food you're going to eat. And
I get it.
Let's be real.
Okay, let's be
BYU.
real.
All those old players at BYU getting buckets.
Sometimes Magic City gets a little old and you got to divert those funds somewhere else. Let's be real, okay?
No, but I'm saying all the coaches know. And actually, Pitino said it. He's not recruiting any high school freshmen. He's losing 3 guys. He's not recruiting any high school players to come in as freshmen. He's taking his bag and he's going to the portal and he's going to buy some guys. The guys that are going to win you a national championship aren't coming out of high school anymore. They rarely have. Since Carmelo Anthony and Anthony Davis, nobody's getting national championships off. Now, Cooper Flagg has a chance. He does have a chance. But my point is, your team is a reflection of your NIL budget. End of discussion. That's the new landscape, and people have to understand that. And I'm just like, man, James Harden, if he wanted to drop 4 or 5 mil, they'd go get anybody.
Yeah.
Or,
Very true.
And that's what you have to look at. And it's a shame because, I was talking with Coach Hurley at Shoot Around yesterday. That's what it is now. Their coaches are pushing the schools to hire GMs because the coaches don't want to be GMs. They want to coach. They don't want to be on the phone with agents talking about money. They want to be in practice talking about defensive schemes and concepts and player development because that's where their passion is. That's their skill set, not negotiating deals with players. Coaches shouldn't be involved in that anyway. So NIL it's crazy, man. It really is.
It's crazy, but it is also changing. And, we'll have more on that, here in the coming weeks. But just a kind of a brief overview. Everything's kind of changing right now in the landscape. And if everything goes through the House the way it is expected to, minus the obvious lawsuits that will inevitably come from it. But in essence, you'll have a sense of a salary cap. And it'll be up to each school to determine how they want to distribute those funds. Some have told me, like, listen, I've talked to about 7 different athletic directors in 3 different conferences. Each one of them has a different plan on how they would attack it and how they would approach it, which is kind of crazy. Some of them want to, divest it into more scholarships for some of the non-revenue sports. Some of them want to take a big portion of it and invest it into football. Some of it want to spread the love a little bit more. But it's going to be complex. It's going to be difficult. And then the other part of this, and this is more to the NIL side of this thing, is that you can no longer just give kids cash. You have to be able to give them their marketing money has to come from a marketing spot, right? It has to come from, some type of, payout, right? So like if Jim Click Ford wanted to get Caleb Love, and they wanted to pay him $5 million, that has to represent fair market value. Now, we all know that there's other things in the world, in the landscape of this, that are going to make it very complex to keep track and all that stuff. We get it. But on the surface, that is the rules by which everybody will have to play in. So we'll see where it goes.
Yeah.
Listen, the rules were broken long before we even had NIL.
Yeah, I was going to say,
long after too.
You're not going to get, you can move all the money in-house and let the schools pay it out, but the suitcase has been around for 40 years. You ain't going to get rid of the suitcase. There's always going to be a suitcase or a duffel bag full of money out here at some of these schools, and it just is what it is. But back to your other point before we wrap up, Kansas is important to Arizona for this point only. You don't want to lose 3 of your last 5 to end the season. That ain't how you want to go into postseason play. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. Oh, tournaments don't matter. Tournaments don't matter. Okay, whatever. Finish strong. Keep spirits high. Keep your confidence up. Dropping 3 out of your last 5, regardless of your total body of work, that's not how you don't want to back in to postseason play. You just don't. So
Agreed.
Arizona does need to go into Kansas, hostile atmosphere, first time and since forever. I don't know if they've ever played there before or if it's the first time in a long time.
No, they played there before.
Yeah, they got to go in there and they got to get a win. They got to get a win just to get back on the plane. And what better situation for Arizona from a coaching standpoint? We got a game that, quote unquote, doesn't really matter against a great team in a hostile environment before we start playing great teams in hostile environments. Come on, man. You couldn't ask for a better setup, a better place to finish the game.
I believe it was the Jared Bayless led team with Chase Budinger that went to Kansas and played, and they lost that game, but they played tough. And hey, listen, the Fog is real. I've been to the Fog once before. Got to see Buddy Hield take on Kansas. That place is lit, man. It's pretty crazy. And I will be there this time around as well. This Saturday, I'll be there, and I'll be there for forever. I'll be there for like 10 days. I'm leaving Friday, and I'm staying all the way through the Big 12 tournament to that Sunday, and I'm coming back on Selection Sunday. So pray for your boy. Hopefully I don't have a heart attack from all the barbecue I'm about to eat. But I will be out there. I'm going to do a bunch of content. I'm going to do some vlog. I'm going to give you guys a look and a peek behind the scenes of what really goes on at those kind of atmospheres, and hopefully it'll be fun. hopefully we get a dub. Hopefully we get a couple of them, maybe 3 or 4 while we're out there in Missouri, Kansas. It's weird. Kansas City borders both Missouri and Kansas, so you don't know which one you're in. It's stupid. It's so stupid. I don't even understand it. Anyway, that's my guy, Corey. You can follow him at College Corey. You can follow me at Saul_Bookman. You can follow the show at PHNX_Wildcats. You can follow the podcast on its own feed at McHale Madness on whatever platform you have. And make sure you hit that thumbs up button on your way out. Give us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you have, and we would really appreciate it. Again, we're going to be out, and you can stay tuned this week because Corey and I will have an actual breakdown of the Kansas game. That'll be a side piece for you guys. Maybe that's what we should call it. Side pieces. Let's go.
No.
I got
Don't do that.
I can't tell my wife, hey, I got to do my side piece tonight. Like, I can't do that. That's not good, right?
No, sir.
But like, we will have that audio for you guys and a lot of content here in the coming weeks because we got a lot of tournament, a lot of gameplay to go. So it's going to be fun. Stick with us. And make sure you tune into my guys, Damon and Kevin, on their show as well at PHNX_Wildcats. They do a great job. So for Corey, for me, myself, as always, we appreciate y'all. Bear down.
We all silly like the mayor.